The Guildford Heat took on the Sheffield Sharks at the Surrey Sports Park on Sunday and served up an overtime thriller. Early on, the two teams were even, Paul Williams opening the scoring, the Sharks' big man netting the first 6 points for his team, all coming in the paint. Julius Joseph responded with a 3 for the Heat, but despite his early success, he was only 2 of 7 from behind the arc for the game. Early on, the Heat were even making their free throws, but their Achilles heel would come back to bite them when it mattered the most. JJ did most of his work close to the basket, here giving the Heat a 5-4 lead. As well as scoring, JJ also pulled down 7 rebounds. Carlos Medlock again showed his court vision as he got out on the fast break, Thomas Januszewskis being the beneficiary as Carlos rewarded him for running the court. That basket gave the Heat an 8-4 lead. At the other end, Marcus Stout, who at times seemed able to score at will, pulled the Sharks back into the game, scoring 7 straight points for his team. He capped his scoring spree with his only three-pointer of the game, which tied things up at 13 all. The Heat struggled to contain him and caught a break when he left the game early in the fourth quarter, having turned his ankle and was unable to return. Ryan Patton then took over, burying a pair of three-pointers around a fast break layup by Stout, who scored 9 first quarter points. This second 3 from Patton put the Sharks up 21-19. When JJ missed this buzzer-beating layup at the other end after an excellent Ralph Hegeman feed, the Heat found themselves down 19-23 at the end of the first. The second quarter saw the Sharks stepping up their defence, Steve D'Agostino stripping the ball from Teo Ogedengbe. Teo did well to hustle back on defence and deny Marcus Stout an easy 2 points, the Sharks player going on to make 1 of 2 from the line. Teo made amends not long after when he buried a 3 from the corner on his way to 13 points. It was a reward for excellent ball movement by the Heat. At the other end, Marcus Stout continued his dominance, here dribbling through most of the Heat team. When he wasn't scoring, he was setting up his teammates, finding Olu Babalola for a 3-point play which he converted. When Atiba Lyons, the Sharks player coach, made a pair from the line, the Sharks were up 36-28 and all the Heat's scoring in the quarter had come from behind the arc. However, the Heat started going to the basket, Martel McLemore here slicing through the Sharks' defence on his way to another of his game-high 26 points. Marcus Stout responded for the Sharks, but the Heat cut the lead to 4 at 34-38, forcing a Sharks timeout. Even Scorcher got in on the act, making his junk during the timeout. The timeout seemed to do the trick as neither team scored for over 3 minutes until Steve D'Agostino drove to the basket, getting a fortunate call against Thomas. After another timeout, the Heat fought back, Carlos Medlock tying the game at 40 all with a pair of 3-pointers. However, just as they did in the first quarter, the Sharks finished strongly, scoring the last 4 points. Here Mike Tuck getting to the line for another 2 free throws, and then Steve D'Agostino slipping past a non-existent Heat help defence for yet another layup to make it 44-40 to the Sharks at half-time, where Oscar Achepa, out with a dislocated kneecap, got a warm welcome from the crowd. The Heat opened the second half with a Mac attack, but the Sharks made the early running, going ahead 50-43, Williams scoring their first 4 points before this jumper from Marcus Stout capped a 6-0 Sharks run. The Mac was soon back in action, stealing the ball after the Sharks thought they had the rebound. He then found JJ for an easy inside basket to make it 45-50. The Heat continued to pour it on. This jump shot from Thomas Januszewskis trimming the lead down to 3. The Heat then started to get some stops, frustrating Coach Lyons. When Ralph Hageman scored on the fast break from a nice feed from Carlos, the momentum was with the Heat, forcing the Sharks to call timeout. With Scorcher whipping up the crowd, it didn't seem to make a lot of difference, and straight after the break, Mike Martin hit a big 3 to regain the lead for the Heat, capping a 12-2 Heat run. D'Agostino soon had the Sharks back in the lead, scoring on the fast break, and, despite noisy support from the crowd, the Sharks edged back in front once again, closing the quarter on a 5-0 run to take a 67-62 lead into the third quarter. Thomas trimmed the lead with his second jump shot of the night, and good Heat defence forced a turnover from the Sharks. Lions almost making a spectacular save after Babalola's errant pass. However, neither coach was happy with the refereeing, and both Coach Creon and the Tiba Lions were vocal in their complaints. This time, Coach Creon having to be restrained by Carlos, anxious that his coach didn't get a technical. The Sharks found their feet after opening the quarter with 3 consecutive turnovers, and this Babalola 3 pushed the lead back to 7 at 71-64, forcing Coach Creon to call for a timeout. The Heat responded immediately, Ralph and Thomas both working hard on the offensive glass after Carlos's floater bounced off the rim, Ralph eventually putting the ball in the basket. Despite this, the Sharks continued to pull away, this score by Paul Williams from the Babalola pass extending the lead to 9 points at 76-67 with 5 minutes to play. However, the Heat didn't give up and hit back almost immediately. JJ's layup here making it 74-76, part of an 11-2 Heat run which was capped by this coast-to-coast layup by Carlos, tying the game at 78 apiece. It was an impressive fight back from the Heat, and they didn't give up, carrying on to put some more pressure on the Sharks. Good hustle here from JJ saved the ball, and some good passing from Mike Martin, and then Teo found Martel open inside for an easy score to make it 80 all with under a minute to play. After a Sharks free throw, the Heat scored the next 6 points to make it 86-81, but after a pattern 3, it was 86-84 to the Heat with 6 seconds to play. Coach Creon called timeout and drew up the play he wanted, which got JJ the ball. He was immediately fouled and went to the line, making the first shot. Unfortunately, he missed the second, and got the rebound to D'Agostino, who raced up court and took off from outside the three-point line. Just before he landed, and just before the buzzer sounded, he released the ball and banked it in off the backboard. A jubilant D'Agostino was convinced that he had tied the game, but the Heat players and the bench were equally convinced that the shot should be waved off. After a long conference, the referees confirmed the basket and sent the game into overtime. The Sharks opened overtime with the first basket, Mike Tuck making a strong move in the paint, dropping in his leaner over Teo, his 8th point to go with 8 rebounds in the game. Next it was Paul Williams' turn, the Sharks' big man making a near identical play to put the Sharks back in front, despite the help defence from JJ. However, soon good work on the offensive glass by JJ and an acrobatic reverse putback saw the Heat take their first lead in overtime at 92-91. The Heat caught a break when Williams fouled out. Williams obviously didn't agree with the call and was lucky not to get a technical as he protested. Then it was the Sharks' turn to get a call to go their way, Lions stepping up to take a charge, the basket being waved off. Running out of players, the Sharks turned to veteran Adrian Anderson, who had been on the bench the entire game. His first contribution was to foul JJ with the scores on 82 all, but JJ missed both free throws. The Heat had another chance to take the lead, Teo getting a good look at the basket but being unable to convert. At the other end, JJ had to foul Anderson to stop an easy layup. After missing the first, Anderson made the second, putting the Sharks up 93-92. The Heat had another chance to regain the lead, but despite Mike Martin getting a good look at the basket, his jump shot was agonisingly short. The Heat had one last chance. With 6 seconds to go, Teo pulled down a rebound and got the ball to Carlos, who launched a shot from his own half as time expired. It was straight, but a fraction long. The ball bounced high off the back rim and the game was over, the Sharks winning 93-92.